About 2 years ago, I made a video called Why the Boston Celtics Are the Next Amazing NBA Dynasty. And honestly, when one thinks about the Boston Celtics, you really gotta tip your hat off to Danny Ainge, who has been probably, in my opinion, the best GM in basketball the past 10 years. Upon the regression of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, the Boston Celtics swung a huge trade, nabbing multiple picks from the Brooklyn Nets. Add Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith, or Josh Jackson to the equation. And guys, if you think I'm being biased, this is coming from a Laker fan. This does kind of hurt to admit this, but Celtic fans, Boston fans, all of you guys have something to look forward to. And this was back when things were significantly different and things played out differently, and I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. The thumbnail of the video could tell you how much things have changed for the Celtics since then, but back then, the Boston Celtics primary player who they were building around was Isaiah Thomas. And they had the #1 overall pick, and many people expected them to draft Markelle Fultz. And obviously, the Celtics ended up trading Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder for Kyrie Irving. They traded the the ability to draft Markelle Fultz down to the #3 pick to draft Jason Tatum. And throughout time, we just saw some of those moves blow up in their face. On July 3rd, 2016, the Boston Celtics signed Al Horford to a 4-year, $113 million contract. And the main reason Al Horford signed with the franchise was he was really sick and tired of being with the Atlanta Hawks, who seemed to be trending towards a rebuilding direction. And he wanted to play for a storied franchise with a history of winning. By signing with the Boston Celtics, you pretty much get to do that. But this past offseason, we not only saw Kyrie Irving ghost, quote unquote, the Boston Celtics, but we also saw Al Horford telling them that he is ready to move on. The entire question surrounding that is, why is this happening and what happened? And who is to blame for this? A lot of Celtic fans, or a lot of armchair general managers, or a lot of fans that just give lazy analysis would place the blame on Danny Ainge. And although Danny Ainge is to blame partially for this, and that's just because of his philosophy, it really is unfair to criticize his style of building this team. And I'll give you my personal reason why. First of all, I'm a Laker fan, so if you guys think that I'm coming at the Celtics and trying to bash the Celtics, please go watch my last video on them 2 years ago. I think the world of Danny Ainge as a general manager. But I really don't think Danny Ainge is to blame for any of this. I actually think the Celtics, despite them being the Celtics, and despite their logo being a leprechaun, they just got very unlucky. For example, they signed Gordon Hayward, reunited him with Brad Stevens, and also put him together with Kyrie Irving, a great young nucleus of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Have Al Horford there as well. Brad Stevens is a great coach. Off the bench, you have players such as Terry Rozier. You have great role players such as Marcus Smart. You pretty much have a great team that is expected to contend. So why didn't the team contend? Well, let's start with the very first issue. Gordon Hayward, in his very first game, breaks his leg. Terrible freak injury. He hasn't really been the same since. And now you have a bunch of money, a bunch of maximum contract dollars committed to Gordon Hayward. And that's terrible because that Gordon Hayward could have been any other free agent. But due to the circumstances and just due to bad luck, he got injured. And now you are stuck paying a player who, at least within his first 2 years, didn't look like himself. He may get back to the level of production he once was. And honestly, I have faith in Brad Stevens, in him putting his players in a position to succeed, but that's just one example of the Celtics' terrible luck. Another example of terrible luck, Kyrie Irving goes down with an injury, and the Celtics make a deep run without him. So Terry Rozier tore up the playoffs last year, Jason Tatum dunked on LeBron James. All of a sudden, this young nucleus of Celtics feel like they don't need Kyrie Irving. They may feel potentially that they don't need Al Horford, but I'm not going to go out there and throw something out there just to start drama. Just imagine being Terry Rozier. Okay, you're on the bench the entire time throughout the season, and Kyrie Irving goes down, and you start balling out. You start crushing it. You do so well that you're able to take your team within a game of the NBA Finals. And then the next year, Kyrie Irving comes back, and he takes your spot. And then you guys do terrible. You're obviously going to be upset, especially if your name is in trade rumors to be traded to a team such as the Suns that will actually allow you to start alongside other young prospects. Another issue, and this is the part where I really can't blame Danny Ainge for this, a lot of Celtic fans are very frustrated at the fact that Danny Ainge wasn't willing to cash in his assets in order to bring in a big fish. He had a chance to trade for Paul George. He didn't. He had a chance to trade for Jimmy Butler. He didn't trade for him either. He had all these assets, all these draft picks, and he opted to attempt to compete for a championship and rebuild at the same time. And honestly, I thought that was awesome. I think that was very unique, and I actually praised him for it. And now that it seems to have blown up in his face, you see a lot of analysts on ESPN and YouTube criticizing Danny Ainge. And as a Laker fan, one of the things that I thought was frustrating as a Laker fan was how quick we were to give up on our prospects. For example, we traded D'Angelo Russell, and a year later, he became an all-star. We just traded Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, and I don't know about Lonzo Ball, but I think Brandon Ingram could become an all-star. Just as an example, I really could understand why Danny Ainge didn't only want to invest in the present and why he wanted to invest in the present and the future. But the problem with investing in the present and the future, you need two timelines to go right for you. You need the present timeline to go right for you, and you need the future timeline to go right for you. The present timeline being Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, and the future obviously being Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier, and Jaylen Brown. The fact that Gordon Hayward broke his leg already sets the present timeline back a little bit. So instead of having a big three, you kind of have Kyrie Irving and Al Horford, depending on some of the youngsters to step up as well. I can understand the desire of wanting to contend for a longer period of time. After all, the Eastern Conference didn't seem that challenging, especially with the exit of LeBron James. I really understand why Danny Ainge could look at the NBA currently and say, okay, the only teams we really need to be able to beat is the Toronto Raptors with Kawhi, which at the beginning of the season didn't seem as intimidating as it sounds right now. On top of that, we just have to beat a very young Philadelphia 76ers team who's as young as us, but in addition to that, we have some established veterans that have made it to the finals. I could understand why Danny Ainge did not see the need to cash in his assets for an all-star, a four-time all-star like Jimmy Butler or Paul George, who is looking phenomenal right now next to Russell Westbrook. But the Oklahoma City Thunder have been a first-round exit ever since he got traded to the Thunder. But unfortunately for Danny Ainge, he just got very unlucky. Again, Gordon Hayward broke his leg. Kyrie Irving got injured, and now his role players think that they could start and take over. Brad Stevens kind of lost his team at that point, but that wasn't even his fault. It was just a bunch of unfortunate circumstances. The scary thing is now that Al Horford's leaving and Kyrie Irving's leaving is the Boston Celtics are definitely trending downward going into free agency, but at the same time, they can't really make a change. There's no point. You would not fire Danny Ainge because he's been an incredible GM. He's done everything correctly. Here's an example. Imagine you were the Golden State Warriors and you had Bob Myers as a general manager. Bob Myers drafts Steph Curry and Bob Myers drafts Klay Thompson. And for, I don't know, let's just say after 2 years into his career, Steph Curry actually had a lot of ankle injuries. And the Golden State Warriors, believe it or not, were considering trading him. And thankfully they didn't. But imagine if the ankle injuries were so bad that it consumed Steph Curry and he wasn't really a factor in the league. The Warriors wouldn't really be the Warriors anymore. But Bob Myers would not be considered to be a great GM. Despite the trade for Andre Iguodala, despite the drafting of Draymond Green, despite firing Mark Jackson for Steve Kerr, Bob Myers would be considered an average GM. And that's just because he got very unlucky. I believe Danny Ainge's building philosophy the way he's building the Boston Celtics makes a ton of sense. In fact, he's doing an incredible job. So when we're asking the question, hey, what happened to the Boston Celtics? Why are they in the situation they are currently in? The answer is simple. They just got unlucky. Do I think they could turn it around? Definitely. Are you kidding me? They still have a promising team. They just have two veterans that I guess wanted to move on, which I could respect. And although things are trending downward for the Celtics, I do believe in their ability to somehow build a team and compete in the Eastern Conference. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think the Boston Celtics are done? If so, why not? Do you agree with what I said about the Celtics being in the position they're in because they're unlucky? Or is there something that Danny Ainge did to sabotage this team to put them in the situation that they are in right now? If so, what do you think was the move that Danny Ainge did that sabotaged the Celtics? I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for watching.